We have quorum. Please be seated. Members, this afternoon we are going to turn our attentions now to the appropriations to the Deputy Governor. That is found on page 33 of your document. And so I recognize the member from Bodden Town West.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have discussed with my colleagues on this side, and we agree that the following items we can take as a block vote in the interest of time. CIV 2, CIV 12, CIV 14, NGS 20, OE 2, OE 100, OE 107, OE 116, OE 119, OE 120.
Members, can I just ask, I believe also Deputy Governor, the Deputy Governor will cover the appropriations to Cabinet on behalf of the Legislative Assembly. Is there anything there that you would consider a vote?
Give me 2 minutes, let me just discuss with my colleagues. We didn't look at that one, and I'll let you know.
Okay, sir.
Mr. Chairman, moving to page 35, we're willing to block vote the following: LEA 1, OE 71, OE 128, OE 129, OE 130, and EA 141.
Member for Bodden Town West, I thank you, and I thank the opposition for that concession. So we will go ahead and take the votes on all of these items, and then we'll come back and we'll start with CIV 1. So all those in favor of CIV 2, auditing compliance with human resources and internal financial policies, $1,368,650 in 2020 and $1,377,834 in 2021. CIV 12, preservation and management of records, $1,370,351 in 2020 and $1,422,422 in 2021. CIV 14, support for commissions, $1,322,619 in 2020, $1,322,618 in 2021. NGS 20, Employee Assistance Program, $189,000 in 2020 and $198,450 in 2021. OE2, Personal Emoluments for His Excellency the Governor and official members of Cabinet, $720,000 in 2020 and $720,000 in 2021. Standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye. Those against, no. Ayes have it. Over the page to all those in favor of OE 100, depreciation of the portfolio of civil service executive assets, $20,000 in 2020 and $20,000 in 2021. OE 107, major governance projects, $170,000 in 2020, $170,000 in 2021. OE 118, pension uplift, $1,008,000. Oh, my apologies. OE 116, pension uplift, $1,865,255 in 2020 and $2,617,877 in 2021. OE 119, Second Chances Program, $196,000 in 2020, $196,000 in 2021.
Mr. Chairman?
OE.
Mr. Chairman, on OE 119, can I ask that I be given an update on where the program sits right now?
Mr. Chair.
Welcome, Deputy Governor.
Mr. Chair, isn't it possible to just finish the block vote and leave that one and we come back to that one first? Because
No.
we haven't finished through the block votes yet, no?
Not agreeing on that.
Did it this way yesterday as well. We'll get through it, I promise.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Huh?
Good afternoon, Mr.
Mind your
Chairman.
business over there. It's not good afternoon.
Go ahead, Deputy Governor.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members. Franz Manderson, Deputy Governor and Head of the Civil Service. Mr. Chairman, through you to the Honorable Member, the Second Chances Program is actually going very well. We now have 5 Caymanians who were previously unemployed, who have convictions, who are now being provided with meaningful employment. They're able to support their families. And the feedback that we've gotten from the relevant departments that have employed these persons has been excellent. So we are very supportive of the program, and we thank the members for their support.
Mr. Chair. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the Deputy Governor, I want to say congratulations for the success so far. I take it that this program is more geared to persons who have committed a crime and have a police record. Am I correct?
Mr. Chairman, through you, that is correct. These are persons that have criminal convictions, but have demonstrated a have a proven track record of wanting to rehabilitate themselves and want to become productive members of the community. And so far, it has gone very well.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, again, good afternoon to your supporting staff. This program is geared to those who've committed crimes, but we know that there's other people who have possibly left government without committing a crime, maybe just a disciplinary matter or didn't do the job well or what have you. They too should be given the opportunity for a second chance. Would you agree?
Mr. Chairman, through you, is these persons that we have separated with?
You could say that.
Mr. Chairman, absolutely. I think everyone deserves a second chance. That is the premise that we built this program on. What we have to be aware of is that there should be some type of natural break. So if, for example, if someone breached our rules, they were convicted for theft, and they left the civil service. They went to court, they were convicted. To bring that person right back within a couple of months probably is not going to send the right signal across the service. So we want to ensure that we're sending the right signals, that there is accountability in the civil service, but we also want to show that the civil service wants to be part of a solution. So the private sector, I think, has done a fairly good job of giving our people with convictions opportunities, and the civil service wanted to be part of that solution. So to answer your question, we are not barring anyone from returning to the civil service. We want to make sure that there is a break between the time they leave and the time that they come back. Because yes, everyone deserves a second chance. I believe that.
Thank you, DG. In respect to that break that you speak of, is there any kind of guidelines, or is that a subjective matter on feel? I mean, I want to make sure this is noted, that I'm excluding persons in respect to financial issues, in respect to monies and theft, because I think the threshold is a lot different in respect to theft of public monies. So, but in respect to other disciplinary matters, what is that threshold of what you say a separation time, and if there's any guidelines for it?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I can't say that we have any written guidelines, and the member has raised a very good issue. And of course, the civil service, being the size it is, it means that, you know, if you committed a crime in one ministry, that doesn't mean that you can't come back into another ministry. You might not even be in the same location. So we want to take all of those things into consideration. But to answer your question, sir, there's no written guidelines at the moment, but you've raised a good issue, and I'm be happy to look into that, to making sure that we have a transparent policy.
Thank you, DG.
Member for Bodentown West.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the Honorable Deputy Governor. These 5 Caymanians that are in this program, is there a general age group for them? What age are they ranging roughly? Ballpark, it should have to be exact science.
Mr. Chairman, I thought we had between 30 and 40, around that age group. Don't hold me to that number, but I'm
No.
fairly certain it's around that.
No, one of the reasons why I asked that question is I remember, I think is comparing the statistics. I think the average age in the northward population, based on the 2018, I think it was either 35 or 37. And one of the things that we wanted to look at, because, you know, the government scholarship cuts off, I think, at, is it 35, I believe? Or one of those ages, I'm not sure. But one of the things is more under adult education in terms of lifelong learning and everything else. So we wanted to see exactly what kind of programs we have that's geared towards, you know, the people past the age of 35, 40 in terms of advancing themselves and getting more educational opportunities. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thanks.
Thank you.
So we'll continue with the vote then. We've taken down OE 100, 107, 116, 117, concluding now. No, sorry, did not take 117. So it's OE 100, 107, 116, OE 119, Second Chances Program for $196,000 in 2020 and $196,000 in 2021. And OE 120, Repairs and Maintenance of Executive Buildings, $100,000 in 2020, $50,000 in 2021. Standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye. Those against, no.
Mr. Chairman?
The ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, you went to 126? Not included 126?
No, it does not include 126. Okay, turning now to the final appropriations to approve here by block vote. All in favor of LEA 1, Servicing of the Legislative Assembly and Members of the Legislative Assembly, $1,880,109 in 2020, $1,881,427 in 2021, OE 71, Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, $125,000 in 2020 and $125,000 in 2021. OE 128.
Mr. Chairman, on OE 71, is that
Go ahead, sir. Okay. So we said, we concluded there.
It's just it's an estimate.
Let me take the vote on LEA 1. LEA, all in favor of LEA 1, servicing of the Legislative Assembly and members.
He said take the vote.
Sorry?
Chris just said take the vote on everything.
So I'm going to take the vote on LEA 1. All in favor of LEA 1, servicing of the Legislative Assembly and members of the Legislative Assembly for $1,880,109 in 2020 and $1,881,427 in 2021, standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it. OE 71, Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, $125,000 in 2020 and 2021. Questions?
Mr. Chairman, having discussed it with the portfolio, I leave it with them with an understanding that they'll find some, whatever the extra money is. That's a broad one, but we've talked about a figure to increase, yeah.
All in favor of OE 71, Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, $125,000 in 2020 and $125,000 in 2021. OE 128, personal emoluments for Premier, Deputy Premier, Speaker of the Legislative Assembly, Ministers of Cabinet, elected members of the Legislative Assembly, $3,375,000 in 2020 and $3,375,000 in 2021. OE 129, Executive Depreciation, Legislative Assembly, $153,000 in 2020 and $153,000 in 2021. OE 130, Administrative and Advisory Support to Members of the Legislative Assembly, $130,200 in 2020, $130,200 in 2021, and EA 141, upgrades and repairs to the LA building, $430,000 in 2020 and $75,000 in 2021, standing part of the schedule to the bill. Please say aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it. We now turn our attention to CIV 1, Policy Advice to the Head of the Civil Service, $2,195,629 in 2020, and $2,275,948 in 2021. Are there any questions? Member for Northside, I caught your signal first.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the Deputy Governor. Several of the ministries that have already gone through the Finance Committee, there seems to be a constant thread of lack of resources, mostly in manpower. What is being done to let me give you an example. We're buying 11 new garbage trucks, but we don't have any drivers or sidemen for them. And they say that they have made application to upgrade the pay, and also they need to increase the numbers. I know that there is, for several years now, there's been a kind of an austerity measure, and we seem to take a lot of pride in not growing the civil service. I am not one of those who take any pride in not growing the civil service when services are being denied. So I want to know how do we go about making sure that the ministries and various departments have the human resources that they need to get the job done?
Mr. Chairman, through you, and I thank the member for that question. Mr. Chairman, I have to say that I totally agree that ministries and portfolios have to be given the resources to carry out their mandates. The civil service has actually grown in numbers substantially over the last few years, and that was because of political priorities. So we have seen large numbers of civil servants being recruited to education, social services, and some other and other areas that were a priority. I think we all agree with that. We have been very careful to not grow where it's not needed, to look at innovation, to look at ways in which we can get the most out of our staff without overdoing it, of course, but also to see how we can all work together. So, sir, you would have seen Auditor General's report that was critical of the civil service in terms of workforce planning. I'll ask the Chief Officer to talk a bit about that, but that is a report that we took very seriously because it highlights exactly what you're saying now, sir, is that we were not sort of looking ahead and saying, what is our business, and are we then putting the staff in place to deliver that business? So the portfolio of the civil service is doing a lot of work in that area. Going specifically to the area of the garbage trucks, I can say that job descriptions were sent to the portfolio of the civil service for upgrading. That work has now been completed. And I think I can now take that up with the acting chief officer to get that implemented as quickly as possible. So I'll undertake to make that happen, sir. I think what we have decided to do in relation to, I want to assure the committee that we're not going to have garbage trucks and no drivers. So I want to give that assurance. Yes, sir. So once I think we've done here, we then need to do some planning in terms of looking at when these garbage trucks are going to arrive, and if we're going to be using part-time persons, or we're going to be using full-time persons. If we're going to recruit, then we need to get that done. And I want to give you that assurance, sir, that we won't be having garbage trucks here ready to go and not having drivers.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the Deputy Governor, based on press releases I have seen, every time we got in a jam, you had to lend them some temporary help.
Right.
So that tells me that the problem was not equipment.
Right.
And we're not talking about $3 4 people, no, sir.
No, sir.
If we are going to have 21 trucks on the road
Yes.
doing the various things, each one of those trucks is going to require a minimum of 3 people.
Yes, sir.
A driver, 2 side men, or at least a safety person. So, and by the time you add in sick leave and vacation, you're looking at about 75 people. And I think they only have like 20 or 21 now. So it's a substantial, and it needs to be, but I'm satisfied with a commitment from you that it's going to be taken on as a project to make sure that we have the people.
I give you that commitment, sir.
Secondly, and you know that this is my soapbox, we need to start offering government scholarships for specific posts in government. The government has substantial needs in professional doctors, lawyers, judges, engineers, people with degrees in public administration. And what I'm asking you to consider is to do a manpower projection. And when you go to the high schools to recruit these people that have 10, 12, we're offering them a full scholarship, not $20,000 a year, but and in addition to a full scholarship, which includes travel, allowances. This is how it was done when I got a government scholarship, full tuition, etc., etc. But you were bonded. I had to work for government for 6 years when I came back. I didn't mind because I was guaranteed a job. And we get back to those people who get government position scholarships, which are full scholarships. They be bonded for a minimum of 5 years to work in the service. Because that is how I believe that we're going to build the civil service. And doctors, again, need to be a special kind of a scholarship. It can't be $20,000 a year.
Mr. Chairman, through you. Mr. Chairman, I have no issue at all working with the Ministry of Education on that particular project. Mr. Chairman, we have done a lot, I think, in the last few years to attract Caymanians to the service. One of the things that we are very proud of is our internship program, where I think this year we had 140 Caymanians in the civil service as interns for the summer. And I must tell you, Mr. Chairman, if we sometimes say that our young people are not doing well, sir, the quality of the interns that I've seen in the civil service in the last 2 years has been absolutely outstanding. They could hold jobs in the civil service now, and they're 17 and 18 years old. They are that exceptional. So we want to encourage them to come back and work with us. We have guaranteed them places. Some of them have been given guaranteed places next year. I started in the civil service as an intern, and I would like to see as many Caymanians follow in my footsteps. So, sir, I think it's a great idea, and I'll be happy to progress it with the Ministry of Education.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Speaker.
Any change, that's an observation, any change in policy would have to take into consideration that there are those now on scholarship,
Right.
presently on scholarship, who asked for or applied for and received a scholarship on the basis that they would not have to come back to work or would be forced to come back to work for government. Because I know students that said, if that's what we got to do, I don't want it.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think we can change the rules in the middle of the game, but I think what the member was saying is that we should look to putting in a new program, and I'm happy to consider doing that.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, why is it taking so long to get anything done in the civil service, sir?
Sir, I have seen some amazing things being happening in the civil service, so I'm not sure exactly what the member is talking about.
Well, 2 years to get a drawing done for a dock. Year and a half to get surveys done for road improvement. I could go on and on. Is it, I don't know whether it's a situation where in those particular departments, they don't have sufficient, but the Lands and Survey don't have sufficient surveyors, or whether in the case of the, everybody complains, every time you raise a question with the ministers, everything is waiting on drafting, legislative drafting. What is the issue? Do we have sufficient staff, or do we need more staff, or is it that the legislative drafting instructions are so inadequate they can't draft the regulation? It shouldn't take a year and more to get a set of, we were told this morning that we're waiting 3-4 years now on regulations to be drafted for the no-dive zones in North Side.
Mr. Chairman, I think I should say that while we've been doing exceptionally well, and I spoke here a couple of weeks ago for an hour and a half setting out some of the fantastic things that are happening in our civil service that we should all be proud of. But the member is correct. We do have some pain points that are where we're not doing well. He gave those examples. Some of it is attributed to workload. For example, we have some amazing staff in our legal drafting department. But there is constant pressures. So, for example, and this is, I want the member to know I'm not giving any excuses here. There's no reason that, it's not acceptable that anything takes 2 years to get done. So I'm not giving excuses. But I give you a real example. So I has asked for a online system in my office for naturalizations. It has been going exceptionally well, except that the persons that were doing that has been pulled off to work on some urgent matters to do with the CITF matters that is a national priority for the government. So I had to give away to that. The entire reputation of the Cayman Islands depends on us doing well with the inspections, so I had to give way. So these things happen. They're the things that overtake matters that don't seem to be that urgent. But what we have to do better, sir, is to adapt, to be more nimble, to make sure that nothing takes 2 years. So what I would like to do is to engage with you, get these specific examples, and then work with the relevant chief officers to find out exactly what's going on, and let's get these issues. I've been listening to the Finance Committee here now for the last week, and I've felt your pain, sir, and I want to make sure that goes away. So I give you that commitment. I'm not here to give excuses, and I just want to, the same thing what you want is for these services to be delivered on time. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank the member from Barton Town West. Mr. Chairman, I'm glad to hear the Deputy Governor sing praises of how they're recruiting. I don't know if it always works the way he says. I hope it does, but not only students, there are people who come back and want to be career civil servants and never get into, who come from very good schools, and got very good degrees, and never get response from the civil service. So maybe we need to look at that, not only from the civil service, but the core civil service, but from the statutory authorities too. They never get response. And there may be mitigating circumstances surrounding that. It may be, their lot in life and that kind of stuff that does not allow them to be engaged in summer internships and all that kind of stuff. Summer jobs, they never get responded to. So those are some things we need to look into. And whilst we're on the the provisions of hiring. You have a, what do you call it again? Psychometric. Yes, I had it written down on my phone. Psychometric. Do you apply that during interviews or explain to us how that?
Yes, sir. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you to the member. So a few years ago, we reformed the way in which we recruited the most senior positions in the civil service. We wanted to make sure that we were not making decisions simply on a 1-hour interview or a 45-minute interview. So we have restructured the way in which we recruit for our most senior post, and we have sort of an assessment center where people are given assignments. They are put through the rigors of interview coupled with presentations, proving to us that they can do the job. Part of that is doing a psychometric test, which gives the panel indication as to the sort of behaviors of the individual. But that is not used by itself. It's an indicator as to what type of individual you are dealing with. So,
How is it applied? Is it where you do it within front of few people, or is it applied? I don't know. I'm just trying to find out if it's during the interview.
Mr. Chairman, sorry, I had to consult. Mr. Chairman, once you have been selected to move to the next phase of the interview, so we'll do a shortlisting. We may use the psychometric testing along that time as well, but the link is sent to the person, and they're told that they have a specific time in which to complete the psychometric test, and then we get the results from the site.
Oh, so it's not something that is administered at the government administration
No,
building?
sir. Mr. Chairman, no, sir.
Oh, okay. And that's applied straight across the board like that?
Mr. Chairman, as I said, we use it for the most senior post within the civil service.
No, that wasn't a question, though. Maybe you misunderstood me. I said, is it applied straight across the board with those who are chosen for it to be applied to?
Yes, sir. So, Mr. Chairman, if 5 applicants apply and they are chosen to move forward, then yes, all 5 of those
Right.
persons does the test.
Right.
Yes, sir.
And the link is sent to them, and they do it, and then it comes back to you.
That's correct, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, my only thing is ask the Deputy Governor to look closely at the recruitment of people in the force, in the civil service. Watch it closely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Member for West Bay North.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair, through you. We have the case, DG, where the police commissioner sat here and said he knew of the case. Young Kimanian, bachelor's in criminology, master's in counterterrorism. In the interview, because of some of his answers, they said there were some shortcomings. But you don't get those things in England, those degrees in England, unless you're good. The young man I know is very, very intelligent. Do you have a program where something can be done for these type of young people, just not because someone from a different country don't like your answer, because your answer may be a little strong in their opinion? Is there something that you can do to help, a program that can get these people to say, okay, you didn't do too well, but we want to keep you with those type of degrees? Something
Yes.
must be can be done, sir.
Mr. Chairman, through you, Mr. Chairman, I did listen to that, that when the member asked the commissioner, and I think he agreed that we needed to look at that case again. And now that the member has raised it with me, I will undertake to do the same thing. I think what the member wants is what we want. We want bright young Caymanians in an RSIP. So anything that we can do to ensure that that is achieved, then I am happy to do it. I attended the police graduation a couple of weeks ago and was so proud, Mr. Chairman, to see some young Caymanian young men joining the RSIP. So we want to see that happening again. We're doing a recruitment exercise right now. So anything we can do to help our young people, whether it's some coaching, whether it's feedback on the interview, telling them the areas that they didn't do well and giving them the support that they need to do better, that is something that we should do.
Member for Bodden Town West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the Deputy Governor. One of the first things, and first of all, I want to thank your team for putting together this Cayman Islands Cayman Islands Government Annual HR Report for 2018. It actually was very informative, and it actually told a very good story about the civil service and what it is that's being achieved. So I want to thank you on behalf of my constituents of Bodden Town West. With that said, Deputy Governor, one of the first things that jumped out to me was that the civil service had a total of 3,904 employees in 2008, and 10 years later, it only increased by 14 to 3,914, despite a lot of different changes on the government over the last 10 years. And briefly, if you can just give me an idea in terms of the challenges that you have faced over the last 10 years, what you have done to overcome it, and where do you see us moving forward from here? Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, thank you again, and thanks to the member for his compliments. I say every day that I am really blessed, sir, to have some amazing staff, and that certainly makes my life better every day, makes my job a lot easier. Mr. Chairman, when I became Deputy Governor, I think we had, we had 3,400 civil servants. We were in pain. The austerity was real. Persons were being asked to do more, much more with less. But sir, we were in a difficult situation. The government was struggling to pay its bills. Civil servants had to rise to the occasion, to make the sacrifices that was needed to bring our country to where it is today. And I'm very proud to say that civil servants were part of that solution. We gave up a lot: salaries, benefits, allowances, all sorts of things. So, to the member's question, it is now we're now in a better place, given that the civil service has increased. We've done it, I would like to say, in a very managed way. So we just didn't sort of open the floodgates. We did it in areas where it was deemed to be a political priority. I think you've heard the Minister for Education talk about all the support they have given to our teachers and specialists and numeracy specialists, literacy specialists. We have also given more numbers to the RCIP to deal with rising crime, our social workers, our firemen, our prison. We've been very managed in our recruitment. But the member from Northside has highlighted that, there are still some departments that are hurting, and I agree with that, and we have to address it. Member, I hope I'm answering your question, but it has been a challenge knowing that the population has risen tremendously. The civil service has not kept pace, but we're trying to be innovative. We are trying not to grow the service beyond that is no longer affordable. Mr. Chairman, we've worked with you and your team to make sure that we are spending the public's money wisely, and I think we've been achieving that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Governor. Just following on my second question, is seeing that you have literally kept the population flat over the last 10 years, despite over 10,000, probably about 12,000 increase in the population since that time, and the service to the public as maintained a certain level. I noticed that within the public service management law, it does allow for discretionary bonuses and payments to be made. It's in the law, but it's something that we don't exercise. And I noticed you had mentioned it during your throne speech debate that that's one of the things you're working on. Would it be possible to provide us an update in terms of where we are in that process and when realistically we think, we don't expect large scale implementation, but at least rolling out for at least the top, and then eventually as things improve, we can roll to others. How do you see that progressing, and when can we start looking for some payments to be made?
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'll ask the Chief Officer to update on the specifics. But again, I want to record my thanks to the member and all the members of the House who supported the motion for us to look at a performance incentive scheme. It is something that we believe in. We understand that we cannot go back to the system that we had before of just giving regular increments every year. That will not be sustainable. So what the member has proposed and this House has approved is exactly the method that we want to go to. And it will drive behaviors. The member from North Side, the issue that he's saying, some of it has to do with performance. And when you can work all day and all night and still get one pay, but you see other persons getting bonuses, then sometimes your behaviors change. So we want to change behaviors, we want to change attitudes. But civil servants right now are saying, I'm working all day and all night and I still get the same pay. If we move to a situation where if you got to a certain level of performance, you were given a bonus or whatever, I think it'll make us better and move us closer to being where we all want to be in terms of being world class. But I'll ask the Chief Officer to just give an update as to where we are with implementing the private member's motion.
Gloria McFeel-Nixon, Chief Officer, Portfolio of the Civil Service. Through you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank the member for this question. We're very excited about the fact that after a long period of time, and the member mentioned that looking at performance pay is something that was always envisioned within our public service management law, but has been the one section of our law that has never come into force. So we are currently looking at, as the Deputy Governor has said, a sustainable way of being able to reward performance that would not permanently drive up the cost of delivering services. And to that end, I can tell you that work has begun on the project. We are in the data gathering phase. We've also had the assistance of members within our civil service that are looking at the funding methodology for how we would fund our performance incentives. And in the first quarter of 2020, we will have boots on the ground with teams across our civil service as think tank, as it were, a steering committee to help us understand how we design this so that we can create incentives not just for persons who are in sort of leadership positions, but also making sure that these incentives work for people who are in shift situations, individuals who are in the teaching profession, that it really has application across the diverse positions within our civil service. So we have a cross-representation of people from our civil service that are going to be informing that process, and the reward and recognition program will also be designed to allow every civil servant to participate via survey, getting feedback from them about the things that they are most interested in, what drives them, and what they desire. We expect that there will certainly be a cash component of that, but there are other benefits that people also value, and so we're making sure that it is fit for purpose in terms of what motivates our staff. We did a test run just in the past 2 weeks. We had over 100 graduates who just did their award for the Institute of Leadership and Management. These would be mid-managers and supervisors, people who are currently responsible for leading others. And we've said, given the fact that you have our most important resource under your control, namely our people, we need to make sure that you have the skills necessary to do that job effectively, to be able to motivate them. And we began with a large cohort of our middle managers, and many of them on their own hours pursued their studies, finished this Institute for Leadership and Management award program, and we had a graduating class of over about 115, 116 people who just went through that. As we were handing out the rewards and there were smiles across their faces, we said to them, we would like you to continue to be on the forefront of testing leadership principles and the way that we can be good managers and good leaders. So we said to them, we're going to be sending out a survey, and we're going to give you 3 options of what motivates you, so that you will have some incentive and some recognition for what you've just undertaken. So they're going to be the first group that we're going to be getting that type of feedback from, and they will receive a benefit as a result of that. So we are already test driving and gathering information that will allow us within that first quarter to put together that program. What we're also looking at in this is obviously the funding mechanisms that I've talked about, and that's being done with input from some of our finance professionals within core government. We're looking at what could be a sustainable benefits or reward, and that's looking at both cash and non-cash benefits that people would value. And then we're also looking at what in our pay structure can we be doing to recognize individuals in the way that pay progression works, to make sure that that is also aligned, so we don't have a conflict in the way that we deal with our sort of core pay issues, and then the way that our performance incentives program would also work.
Thank you very much, Madam Chief Officer. Through you, Mr. Chairman, just going back on one of the things that the Chief Officer spoke about regards to pay. I know there's been this misconception within government and even elsewhere that some of the SAGC companies actually get paid too much. I hold a different view, that it is the public service or the civil service that gets paid a little bit too little, especially when you look at the real market forces that drive our economy. And with that said, what is being done on general civil service pay review on those bands? Because I'm going to tell you straight up, for some of the salaries that some of the employees get paid, especially in the legal profession in this market, and even on the AML side, of those people that we invest in, we train in, and basically being lost to the private sector. At some point, after losing all of that experience and knowledge and everything, it creates a brain drain in the civil service despite the investment being made by the civil service. So the question with all of that is, when can we expect to start seeing a meaningful pay bands across the board within government? Because I'm going to tell you, compared to some of our other competitors, Bermuda, Singapore, different places that we're striving to get to, the reality of it is the salaries are uncompetitive at that level and within the market. So when can we start looking to undertake a proper salary review that will move the bands to the market or more reflective to the market? It used to be a situation 30 years ago, my age coming out, when I joined the civil service, that we would normally pay between 80 to 85% of the market. The market has now passed that point where, on my last estimate, we're around 60 to 65% in key positions within the market that needs to be fixed, or you're going to end up with a serious brain drain within the civil service. You can escape it now when you look at the demographics of your age group, but in the next 15 to 20 years, this is going to be a problem.
Mr. Chairman, through you, Mr. Chairman, the member is 100% correct. I am very concerned about that situation because, yes, we want to recruit people that love their jobs and want to give back, but those people have families and they need to support them. And he is correct when he says that I share his view that the salaries in the SAGCs are mostly correct, and it's on the civil service side. We have this real difficult issue where chief officers are sort of responsible for departments where the head is paid much, much more than they are. So they are ultimately, responsible, but yet the person who is in the SAGC is paid much more than them. That is a real issue. Again, I'm not being critical of the SAGCs at all. So, Mr. Chairman, I wanted the civil service to, before we did something like that, to do a sort of salary review to get us back to where we are now. I didn't think that I was going to be able to do that a year ago or 2 years ago because we were still in a sort of tenuous position. But I'm really pleased with where that we are now in terms of our cash surpluses, all those things. So within the short term, sorry, member, I can't give you a specific date, but it is something that's on my mind. It is something that I have discussed with the governor as something that we need to move forward with, especially at the top 4 or 5 band areas. Like you said, what we are paying our people, our lawyers, to go up against QCs and win cases for us, it's not really competitive. So you're pushing on an open door here, and I will commit to you that over the next few months, we will look into how we can address that issue, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Governor. Next question, Mr. Chairman, through you to the Honorable DG. One of the things I do have a challenge with, or have a problem reconciling on a personal level, is the retirement, the normal retirement age as defined by the Public Service Management Law as being 65, when in fact the private sector really has no retirement age rather than just an age in which you stop paying pension. I noticed from this report, page 22 of this report, back in 2016 we had 229 persons above the age of the normal retirement age within the civil service, and that number at the end of 2018 dropped to 62. And I am, first of all, would just like to assume that nobody was pushed out of the door if they wanted to stay and work, because we have a situation now where people are living much longer. Women in our society is living until 84. So if someone is going out the door at 65, that's 19 years post-retirement in which you're expected to continue living. Men is going to 79, so that's another 14 years. And we are now living in a society where people are now living much longer. And I really have a problem when people are still within an age in their life where they can still function, still contribute to society, basically being forced to retire. So with that said, Mr. Chairman, through you to the Honorable Deputy Governor, is when or what is his ultimate policy in terms of retirement age within the civil service, or even look at increasing it or doing away with it? But I really uncomfortable, especially considering the population of the civil service right now being, I think, 56% females, and the fact that they're living longer, being expected to live 19 years past retirement.
Mr. Chairman, I will ask the Chief Officer to give some specific details, but we are open to looking at our retirement age. I know there was a motion on the floor, I think earlier this year, fall away. Sorry, I think that has fallen away, but we're happy to look at it. I get calls, I get people coming to my house, civil servants who are reaching that retirement age and is worried that they're going to be asked to leave. We've been keeping sort of the majority of those persons. I feel bad forcing people to leave when they are highly capable, and of course performance matters, so we want to make sure that they're performing at a very high level. But I will ask the Chief Officer to give some specific details in respect to the question that was asked.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Just to say that in September 2016, the retirement age was increased from 60 to 65 within our civil service. And since then, we have seen continued growth in the number of persons age 60 and older who work within our civil service. I believe the statistic that the member was referring to was speaking about the number of persons over the retirement age. And the reason that that number decreased is because it was then referring to a population of 65 and older as opposed to 60 and older. So just to illustrate that point further, the number of civil servants employed within our core civil service who are age 60 and older in September 2016, before the law took effect, was 242. As of September 29, and we track this data monthly to see how this population is thriving. So from 242 in 2016, as of September this year, that number was 368 people age 60 and older. The number of civil servants who are eligible to participate in our pension plan again, so between ages 60 and 64, the population that really benefited from increasing the retirement age to 65, That number went from 195 to 283 persons. And of those 283 persons, we've seen 259 of them re-enter the pension program and continue to grow their pensions for future retirement. For the age, for the persons who were between ages 65 and older, in 2016, that number was 47 persons. In September of this year, that was 85. What was really important for us to track was to make sure that this was not happening at the expense of being able to attract younger persons into the civil service. And so we were very happy to see that the population of civil servants who are 29 years old and younger has grown from 451 in 2016 to 541 in 2018. So we have seen a growth both in terms of our persons who are new professionals coming into the civil service and staying with our civil service, as well as our ability to retain those who are age 60 and older.
Thank you very much. Just in terms of shifting gears, maternity leave and paternity leave. While the maternity leave offered in the civil service is better than it is within the public service, overall compared to our peers, it is one of the things that is still lacking. Is there any policies or anything being looked at in terms of probably increasing the portion of paid leave, not just the leave, but the portion of it that's actually paid? Is there anything being done to increase that portion?
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, through you. Yes, sir. Yes to the member. I announced in my budget address that was an area that we wanted to review, both the maternity leave and the paternity leave. Mr. Chairman, I was struck by an article in the newspaper that talked about how far Cayman was behind, how far behind Cayman was in supporting young mothers, fathers with their families. And Mr. Chairman, I don't want world class just to be a buzzword. I really want us to live it, which means that if we're going to be world class, we have to provide world class policies and laws that are best in class for our civil servants. We talk about supporting families. We talk about ensuring that our young people are grounded. Well, if their parents can stay home with them a bit more, spend more time with them. I recall, Mr. Chairman, I saved up my vacation and my overtime so that when my daughter was born, I could spend a month with her. And that's probably the best month of my life, spending time with your newborn. I want to see that happen across the civil service, where in Cayman in general, where mothers and fathers can spend more time with their children. Those sort of bonding months is critical. So, sir, yes, we will be looking to that. We're setting up a team now to take that forward in the new year.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Governor. I noticed that this vote also deals with policy advice and strategic development of the Civil Service College and other learning and development strategies. Can you provide us pretty much a quick update in terms of where we are now at the Civil Service College, and ultimately what do you think will be needed to move that to the next level in terms of getting it to world class or the standard that you're aiming for?
Mr. Chairman, I think we're doing some fantastic work on the civil service, in our Civil Service College. I attended a graduation a couple of weeks ago, and to see civil service graduating, we are now providing free education up to bachelor's level for our Caymanians. We're seeing good take-up, but I would ask Ms. Andrea Famoy, who has been heading that unit up for a while. She's left the portfolio now to do some work in another area, but I think she'll be the best person to ask detailed questions on the Civil Service College.
Andrea Famoy, former director of the Civil Service College. Mr. Chairman, I am extremely pleased at the progress that the Civil Service College has made over the past 4 or 5 years, and especially we have we've offered a myriad of subjects and different levels of courses for all of our colleagues, ranging from those who have just a high school diploma to those who already have attained postgraduate level college certification. The Deputy Governor and the Chief Officer have both mentioned recently of the graduation ceremony that took place for the ILM students. With the launch of our 5-year strategic plan, the Deputy Governor wanted to ensure that staff got the training and the development that they needed in order to help us on our path and our growth as an organization. And as such, he wanted a minimum of all supervisors and managers to speak with the same language, understand the same concepts in terms of management and leadership. And so we launched the ILM Level 3 program, the award program, with 4 specific classes that we thought would be a good foundation for all of our supervisors and managers to have. We launched a program last year, and this year saw almost 120, it was 118 people complete that program. And now these are full-time people with responsibilities outside of the job, as well as complicated posts that they're filling, dealing with staffing issues and delivery of services and outputs. That was quite successful. So in addition to that, we also support people in a program that is offered by UCCI and co-sponsored by, right now I think it's Florida International University. It's the Executive Certificate in Global Leadership. This past year we had 8 people complete that. That is an 8-month program, almost at a postgraduate level of studies. We've referred to it almost as a mini MBA because of the different types of courses that they focus on each month. We also support senior managers in the Chamber of Commerce Leadership K-Man program. That too has been going on for numerous years. Every year there's a new cohort in place. We had about 3 people do that this year. In addition, we also have our associates program that is offered through UCCI. This year we had 15 graduates, along with 5 individuals who completed the certificate program, which is just a tier down from the associate's level. One of our students graduated with a bachelor's degree. We launched our bachelor's degree support, Mr. Chairman, as a way to incentivize our colleagues to just continue to develop themselves and further their education. The bachelor's level support by the Civil Service College, however, is only offered to Caymanians who have completed the associate's degree with honors, that's with 3.5 or above. We feel that they have surely demonstrated their ability, their willingness, their desire to learn and develop, and their commitment. If they're going to manage personal lives, their professional lives, and still go to school and earn a B+ average. Last year, we had almost 350 people take associate level classes. And in addition, we offered a number of other courses at Civil Service College, stuff to help them develop their on-the-job performance. We did minute taking, report writing, IT courses such as Excel, advanced Excel in particular this past year for the entire finance team across the civil service. There's a lot going on. There's a lot more we want to offer. This coming next year, we want to expand our team at the Civil Service College. Up until now, it's been just 2 people. We want to expand it and hire trainers just so that we can really fully immerse ourselves and offer a greater variety, and even if it's just the same courses, but across a wider spectrum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the Deputy Governor, and this one's a little bit of a flip, but pretty much get into my last question. We have spent years within our society speaking about the civil service becoming more like the private sector, government run like a business. And that's not a thinking of I don't subscribe to, because government doesn't have that luxury. But one of the things in most developed and developing countries is that the civil service has always been seen as the benchmark for middle class workers and upper middle class. With that said, Mr. Chairman, I noticed that when you look at the civil service pay statistics, more than 2/3 of the members within the civil service get paid more than $40,000 per year, which is well above what it is in the private sector. And looking in terms of what the civil service have achieved in terms of gender equality, in terms of where women hold in very senior positions compared to men. And that is one thing I can honestly say, if you look across our competitors and elsewhere, when it comes on to women and the promotion of women within our society, the civil service is actually world class in that regard. So I have to give the Deputy Governor credit and his team for achieving that milestone. But one of the things I would like to see more of, rather than the civil service waiting for the private sector to come in and show them how things are done, what can the civil service do in most cases, and building on what the Premier said in his speech, where sometimes the government has to take the lead in terms of setting certain behaviors within society, whether it be through maternity pay, through pay, or anything else. What can the civil service do to engage the private sector more, and in some cases teach the private sector how to be better corporate citizens and how to do right by most of the employees at a better scale? Because I will tell you from experience, the civil service get it right. They have their challenges like every other organization, but compared to many organizations in the private sector, they're doing a very good job. And the question for us now is, how can we replicate some of their successes into the larger part of society and not have a kind of government on one side or civil service on one side and the private sector on the other side? In other words, playing a more leadership role in terms of sitting with some organizations.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. All I can say to the members, we're definitely on the same page, because I subscribe to everything he just said. How are we achieving that? So we have ensured that we are part of the various bodies around the island. So, for example, the HR Society, we've pushed civil servants to be part of that. We present at the HR big conference. So we present on staff engagement. We present on the last presentation I did was, entitled "Do We Really Care About Our Staff?" and just showing exactly what the civil service is doing to simply show our staff that we care. And I please indulge me, Mr. Chairman, but something happened this morning that I just want to share real quick. So we send out a automated birthday greeting to our staff on their birthday, and also anniversary email that they get to say, you have just done 5 years. Thank you for your service. It is your birthday. Happy birthday on behalf of all of us. Mr. Chairman, just that small token to say we remember you, we care about you, have a happy birthday. If you see the feedback that we get from our teams, just this morning I got an email from a young civil servant saying how delighted they were that we remembered them and that we took the time to wish them, and this was the person's first year in the service, but they were so happy that we said thank you for their service. And I followed that up with a personal email they wrote to me. So I gave a presentation along those lines at our HR forum recently, and the feedback that I got from the private sector HR persons was tremendous. Oh, DG, that's a great idea. We want to do things like that for our teams. I've been asked to say, well, can you come in and talk to my managers, because I can't get them to do some of the buy-in. And I go and I talk to other private sector companies. I've done a presentation at CUC about authentic leadership. My chief officer here did an amazing presentation recently about, on International Women's Day, talking about how well we have done in promoting women, And I will never forget, she had a very impactful slide that said, "It has been said that women belong in the house." And we agree. And her next slide was a picture of the Honorable Minister for Education, the Honorable Minister for Financial Services, and our councillor here, that they are in this house. You know, we have women in the very top positions within our country. That was a very impactful slide that showed what a good job we're doing as a country to ensure that women are represented at all levels. So to answer the member question is that I think we're doing a lot. Can we do more? Of course, to ensure that what we're doing in the civil service is infectious. Mr. Chairman, I said it here and I repeat it again. When you see a government department on first try become a gold investors in people, the international accredited organization, the Department of DCI in Minister Hughes' ministry, that is something that is exceptional. And not many private sector companies achieve that. So the reason why I have been bragging about that for the last 4 or 5 weeks is that I want it to be infectious across the civil service. I said it to my civil servants and my HODs. That should now be the standard. We should now be trying to replicate that across the entire civil service. I want to remember, I think maybe KPMG or CUC had got that gold award. So we're achieving things that are not even achieved in the civil service, and I just thank the member for raising it, and we will continue to do our best to engage and ensure that what we're doing in the civil service is spread across the islands.
Thank you very much, Deputy Governor. Sorry, I do remember one more question I had on this vote, and that had to do with some civil servants have accumulated a serious amount of time that, in all honesty, they will never be able to use. I know some ministries have converted some of that time into salary where they've just basically paid them out for it, and some has been a combination of both. I know it has been being done sorry, on a ministry by ministry basis, but as a policy wide across the civil service, because at the end of the day, civil servants do talk to each other, and it's difficult when one is being cashed out and one is not. Is there a set policy where we can look at zero in the clock and give some employees the ability to cash out their accumulated leave that they will never be able to take? And the reason why I say that is, especially now considering that in the last 2 years there have been about 5% increases, it's becoming more expensive if we start cashing people out as we move the pay scale. So I think it's better off to give people the option when it's still cheaper at the old rate as opposed to paying at the new rate in terms of getting some of those leave out. Have there been a full review across the service with regards to the leave that some people have accumulated? Because as we have already identified, in the last 10 years, the population have remained flat despite the growth in the economy. It means a lot of people would have stepped up to the plate a lot. So the question is then, what can we do to deal with some of the accumulated comp time for some of the individuals?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Mr. Chairman, we have been monitoring comp time. I recently got an update, I think, from the Minister of Finance. FS sent me comp time in his ministry. It was really low. It's been low because I think Customs has left, but when Customs were there, then the comp time numbers had gone up. But I take the member's suggestion is a good one. I cannot say that we have a service-wide policy. I know we have a service-wide policy on overtime and comp time, but I don't think we've made a decision to review and move to payout. So, but I will undertake to do that. I think it's the right thing to do. I think it's the right time to do. You know, we're about to get 5% richer next month. So maybe if we can do something to clear that up in the next few weeks, we could do it. So I'll undertake to do that, Mr. Chairman.
Member for Northside, you had a couple questions more?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, some people in the civil service get, I think it's a hardship allowance. How does one qualify for a hardship allowance, and how is it calculated?
Mr. Chairman, I am not very familiar with the hardship allowance. I've only known it to be used in very unique situations. For example, you're sending a civil servant overseas, and for example, if they want to, if we recognize that a civil servant needs to go overseas for development, so we're sending them. They still have their bills here. They still have their bills over there. They still have their families. We will sort of build in an allowance to allow them to continue to live well and support their families. But that is a sort of unique situation. I'm not aware of it being applied frequently. If the member has a specific issue, I'd be happy to talk with them offline about it. But I am not aware of it being prevalent across the civil service.
All in favor of CIV1, policy advice to the head of the civil service, $2,195,629 in 2020 and $2,275,948 in 2021, standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it. CIV3, management of public sector reform, $862,396 in 2020 and $885,845 in 2021. Are there any questions?
Chairman, I think we covered that fairly well on the last of it.
All in favor of CIV3, management of public sector reform, $862,396 in 2020 and $885,845 in 2021, standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it. CIV7, workforce development within the civil service, $2,526,473 in 2020, $3,106,893 in 2021. Are there any questions? All those in favor of CIV7, workforce development within the civil service, $2,526,473 in 2020 and $3,106,893 in 2021, standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it. CIV 11, servicing and support for His Excellency the Governor, $815,440 in 2020 and $817,035 in 2021. Are there any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Member for Northside, not from Bodden Town West.
Just a quick question. When can we expect to see a similar vote being taken for the office of Premier?
Come on, I was there, you forget? Yeah. You know what you're going to kill me? Yeah, you can say that easy because you over there by yourself.
Deputy Governor?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure that's a decision for me, but Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to make the record show that I believe and I support the idea of us ensuring that our own Caymanian Premier is given the sufficient services and support that it allows him to carry out the, as we call here, the responsible duties of his high office. We are probably one of the few overseas territories that I know of that the Premier doesn't have a residence, that we don't provide him all of the relevant courtesies that comes with that. That is my view, but I think we would probably need a motion from this House or a policy decision taken by the government for that to happen. All I can say is you won't get any pushback from my side.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Governor. What I can also say is that if we were to build a world-class services, we also have to take care of our own in the process. And I would really like an undertaking from the Deputy Governor to really take a look at the Premier's, the office and the different benefits that come with it, and really provide this honorable also something. But either way, it needs to be done.
All in favor of CIV 11, servicing and support for His Excellency the Governor, $815,440 in 2020 and $817,035 in 2021. Standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye. Those
Aye.
against, no. The ayes have it. CIV 13.
Mr. Chairman. Mr.
Yes, sir.
Chairman, if I may, maintenance of the electoral register, right?
We've already taken, yes, sir. That's well. I'm just going to calling it now and putting it out for questions.
Okay.
Okay. So CIV 13, maintenance of the electoral register, $656,292 in 2020 and $1,761,672 in 2021. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Member, Mr.
Thank
Speaker.
you. I'm the speaker here. I'm the member for West Bay West, sir.
Member for West Bay West.
Mr. Chairman, it seems to me we will have to increase this vote, and it's a fair question. Due to the referendum being put off, there will have to be work that must be done, I guess, done over by the elections office. So that's really my question. Will there be added expense now? Well, this year is done, so it's a new year, the new budget, and this saying 656, which didn't I guess take that in mind.
But Mr. Chairman, is our referendums in this, or it's for 2021?
2021?
No, Mr. Chairman, let me rephrase that before. I note with interest that is only 656,292 this year. That is to maintain the register.
That is for next
Pay
year,
wages.
2020.
2020.
Right.
And then in an election year, you have twice as much, more than twice as much.
Because you have the elections to ramp up for.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that is sufficient and whether or not we need more money.
No.
You're saying the referendum will be held in 2020 then?
Well, we should anticipate it. I didn't put it in the Constitution. You know, I fought against that. They wouldn't have had none if I had to vote for it like that. No.
Yeah, but Mr. Chairman, I hear the member from West Bay Central. West
Bay West.
West Bay West. I'm sorry. Freudian.
Members, I think we do have a question with
I
to
did
the
have the
Deputy
question,
Governor.
yes.
I think let's hear what he has to say.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I would ask the Supervisor of Elections to answer.
Mr. Chairman, Wesley Howell, Supervisor of Elections. Mr. Chairman, as we have progressed through 2019, we had no vote for funding for a referendum. We made some requests through the Deputy Governor, and the Cabinet were kind enough to provide supplementary funding for the office to undertake first the verification and the work that we've done thus far on the referendum. So I'm preempting, but I'm assuming that if we get to that position again in 2020, the same procedures might be allowable.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, let me not start where I was going to start, but the kindness of Cabinet, them caused it. When you're complicit, you have to pay a price. What my direction is, we need electoral reform. Has there been any proposals? Is there an intent to propose any way of moving that forward. I think we all have, to some degree, maybe mine a little more than many others, to some degree want to see some kind of reform in the electoral process.
Mr. Chairman, my deputies and I have been working on a document, a compendium of recommendations that I would look forward to submitting to the Deputy Governor for onward submission to Cabinet shortly. It encompasses some of the recommendations that were made by the last international observers. It covers recommendations on a sort of procedural aspect, some from a policy perspective, also includes, and this is just a carry forward of what international observers highlighted, were some considerations for constitutional changes in relation to qualifications for office and qualifications of electors.
Mr. Chairman, I wonder if the member cares to, the gentleman cares to inform us as to when he expects to forward those to the Deputy Governor for transmission to Cabinet.
Mr. Chairman, I would have hoped to have submitted the same already, but we did pause that temporarily to work on the referendum. The document is well advanced, and I would expect that to be completed within a couple of weeks, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I thank Mr. Howell. Mr. Chairman, I've been here long enough to know, and I'll turn to the question. I've been here long enough to see us go through 2 or 3 reforms. And I certainly did not appreciate how they were done then, and I certainly will not support if that's the same manner they're going to be done in the future, or whenever that is. We always wait right down until the end of a session before we start talking about election reform, electoral election reform. I think that we need a select committee of this House, a bipartisan committee. We did already, but I don't think it was active as it should be. But there's much to be done in the Constitution as well, because this thing about 400 days going to be taken out of that Constitution. Well, you can't miss more than 400 days to be qualified for. Of course, vote here and come and run here. You mean you're going to make somebody go away for 3 years and come back here and run and win the election? I don't have a problem with it. Well, that's being very selfish if you have a problem with that. If it's a true Caymanian who has been away for 3 years and anybody in here allow him or her to come back and win the general election, they deserve to lose. Oh, okay. This is the only country in the world that does that. We're antiquated. Mr.
Can I ask you to, let's direct your question.
Mr. Chairman, I just asked the Director of Elections if he sees a commission, the requirements of a election commission having to be put into the Constitution.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. The leader of the opposition has put me under a question I think is above my pay grade, but I can say in interfacing with my colleagues.
You don't have to answer that. I won't hold you to it.
He needs to answer it. He's the supervisor because Mr. Chairman, I believe every one of us have our views on it, and the supervisor of elections, I'm asking if he sees the necessity to have it entrenched in the Constitution. That's all I'm asking.
So, Mr. Chairman, thank you. What I can say is interfacing with my colleagues from around the world when we get together, either electronically or in conferences, there is a clear separation between the mechanics and the logistics of carrying out the electoral process and ensuring that elections are free and fair. There's another aspect which delves into policy and judgment that sort of came to light during some of the referendum petition verification process, where there was not legislation and there had to be some policy decisions made singularly within my office as supervisor. Those are some things that may be best suited for a electoral commission. But again, the constitutional aspects of that are way beyond my pay grade, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
I had one more question while we have the supervisor of elections.
Mr. Chair.
Okay. Then I have the member for Georgetown Central as well looking to ask. So go ahead, get your question, sir, and then we can move to the member for Georgetown Central.
It is in regards to the matter of people living overseas for longer than whatever election lost point. I think we say 2 years, something like that. But still on our register. And if it's not, I guess, objected to at a time of a voting, set down for a voting, that they remain on there unless somebody, as I say, object to it. Is there some way that the office can check on this outside of immigration?
Mr. Chairman, I thank the Honourable Speaker for that question. The limits in relation to how long a person can be absent from the jurisdiction are driven by the Constitution, backed up by the elections law. So, in effect, the Constitution sets out the what in that the number of periods that persons can be absent before they are subject to being disqualified from being electors or in some cases candidates. The election law then carries out the how. We also have then the following step with the magistrate hearing on challenges that comes during the period for which objections and challenges can be raised on the revised list. And I have seen over the years that the magistrate has made some exceptions for that 2 years for various reasons, including medical, which are actually permissible, but inclusive of parents who have special need children who have special needs that can only be met overseas, and those persons have successfully argued before the magistrate to be able to remain on the register. But I can say for this referendum process to date, that has been one of the areas of contention in relation to the eligibility of persons who are overseas. We do have, Mr. Chairman, provisions within the elections law that we can request certain information to help assess the length of time away, and then we would put that then to the through the registering officers who are charged with this responsibility. We would put that through then to the magistrate for a determination as to the eligibility of the person. But that is the process that we go through for persons who are overseas.
Mr. Chair.
Member for Georgetown Central.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Mr. Supervisor. I want to call you by name. I want to say, firstly, before my line of question, you've been doing an excellent job, you and your team, so far in light of what the country is doing historically with the referendum. I think I should start with the latter first, considering you just came off the light of the question about persons being overseas and the like. Is it fair to say that so far in respect to this referendum that the challenge period has passed and nobody has been, all of those who have been challenged have either been removed or there hasn't been a challenge? Would that be correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, not in relation to the referendum, because that's a separate piece of action, but in relation to the register. So the elections law is actually quite detailed in the process of publishing the 4 revised lists, the period for which objections and claims can be made, and then the period of finalizing that list, and then the list coming into force on a particular date. So yeah, you are correct in that for the next list that comes out 1st of January, the period for objection closed, I believe it was November 18th.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if there was any confusion, I'm just talking about the list, not the referendum itself, the list. So if anybody had any issues, like we just heard, it's too late for them to be dealt with now. Would that be correct?
Mr. Chairman, yes, in respect of the January 1st list, because that list is now, that period is now passed for that. The period for claims and objections for the 1st of April list has yet to come. That will open on the 1st of January and then close round about January 17th or 18th, thereabouts. So again, based on the pursuant to the law and what that specifies in terms of timing, the fact that we have these lists coming out very often, it all depends on what that period is. But yes, the window for additions and removals from the January 1st list has already passed.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, so is it fair to say that if for some reason or another the referendum is delayed till before the 1st of April, anybody who had any challenges of a person being overseas, that time has unpassed for a referendum that would be before April 1st of 2020?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the list again, that period is closed, so there is no legal mechanism to challenge the 1st of January list. We would be challenging now the 1st of April list.
Thank you. It is hard to have you in this honorable committee without, in light of the news. I think with it being such a national importance, would it be fair to ask you if it's confirmed that at this particular point the referendum is put on hold? Because I think everybody in the country would like to hear that from yourself, being the lead person of the elections office.
Mr. Chairman, I have yet to receive formal confirmation. I've read the papers as everybody else. I've actually, during the break, met with the Attorney General, who was yet waiting to get the formal written stay message from the courts as well. But like the member said, that the matter is still evolving, but at this point we are quite prepared to stand on our operations based on the news that we've gotten to date. But I'm still waiting on formal confirmation before we issue that formal statement.
Fair enough. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, has the Cabinet given you any indications of any intention to make changes to the elections law between now and the next election?
No, Mr. Chairman. I think the matter I shared with the Leader of the Opposition earlier was that we were intent to propose some recommendations for legislative changes. I'm not aware of the Cabinet requesting specific amendments from our end.
Thank you. And just to wrap up my question, in respect to those recommendations, is there any elements of shortening the registration period? Because we know that our structure is probably one of the most longest processes in our region, if not in the whole world, if I would dare carry it that extreme. Is there any recommendations within that to shorten that period of the process to be put on the list? So for example, right now it takes you about 3 to 6 months for you to get on the list. In most jurisdictions you can get on a final list within 2 to 6 weeks. Is there any recommendations in that?
Mr. Chairman, through you, yes, Mr. Chairman, that's one of the recommendations that we have is to shorten that period. Some of those provisions were grandfathered from the time lists were done in a much more manual process. With the automation that we've had, particularly some of the work that we're doing with the e-government committee on the national ID, I believe that we can shorten that time period significantly without impacting the accuracy of the list. So that would be one of the recommendations that we would put through, sir. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, was there another part to that question from the member?
I think you covered it. So you're basically saying that there is a recommendation, but you can't say exactly what it is?
Mr. Chairman, the compendium of recommendations is just that we could look at reducing that time period significantly. We didn't spell out in detail what that is. That would have to go through sort of the consultation process. But we have in our draft recommendations shortening of that period.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, can the election supervisor say whether there's going to be anything done about the concern of many persons who want to get registered about being on the jury duty? Because we know that's been a big hurdle, at least perceived hurdle, as to why many people don't want to get registered. Has there been any ideas or concepts to get around that hurdle so more people can participate in the democratic process?
Mr. Chairman, no, sir, I'm not aware of any. I did remember some discussion about the judiciary opening up the jury pool to include other persons who may otherwise be qualified in addition to voters, but I'm not aware that that was a question more for the judiciary, and I think they have a specific law that applies to the jury pool.
Thank you, Mr. Howell.
Member for Bottom Town West, and I'm going to put the vote.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the Honorable Deputy Governor, what is the policy with regards to campaigning within government buildings and within government facilities? Political campaigning.
Mr. Chairman, as you know, right now in relation to the referendum, the government had a information session. We have received representations from CPR to have a lunch and learn, and we've also received a request from the Pro-Port group to have a lunch and learn. All of those requests have been granted. We've done so on the basis that civil servants have a right to be informed, and we should allow basically all sides to educate civil servants. I know we are on sort of tricky ground, but I want civil servants to understand that they have that right to be informed, and it's their democratic and constitutional right to take part in the referendum.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Governor. Through you, Mr. Chairman, it is my understanding from feedback I've received that many civil servants receive unsolicited literature that were placed on their desk overnight. Many civil servants in the government admin building. Is it for us to understand then that such mass distribution overnight with materials on the desk of civil servant would have been approved by your office?
Mr. Chairman, I wasn't aware of that. I became aware of it this morning. But again, I think it was done. Obviously, I sent my memo out that said civil servants have a right to be informed, but I did not give specific authorization for that to happen this last night.
Member for East End.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is it fair to say that the government administration building has cameras in it?
Mr. Chairman, yes, we have a very good security system with cameras.
Good enough. Here we go. Let us examine your memo for a second. Public servants should not undertake any activity that could call into question their political impartiality. Public servants should not participate, underline not, participate in any of the activities identified below. Be actively involved in referendum campaign meetings other than providing factual information. Canvass or collect funds in support of referendum-related campaign. Place bumper stickers or other referendum-related advertisement on government or private vehicles. Advocate for or against the project and or referendum-related campaigns. Authorize project-related and or referendum-related campaign signage to be erected on their property. Participation in a referendum is a proper exercise of a public servant's individual constitutional and democratic rights. Should you feel that you are being unduly pressured to vote, emphasis there. Not to vote, no emphasis there. Or to vote at a certain way, I encourage you, that emphasis or not emphasis of mine, I encourage you to report your concerns to the supervisor of elections and my office so that appropriate action can be taken. Now, having read that, we should know who did it.
Mr. Chairman, did what? I'm not following.
Put all of those vote yes campaign literature on the desk of civil servants last night.
Member, I don't see a question here.
Oh, no, and it wouldn't. There is a question.
Please get to it, sir.
What is going to be done? One, to find out who did it. Two, that person is trying to influence the vote, and what is going to be done with that person in accordance with the memorandum that was sent out by the Deputy Governor.
Mr. Chairman, to the best of my knowledge, and I would have to read through the document again that was put out, but I do not recall it's telling civil servants which way to vote. It was my understanding that it was factual information about the cruise pairs and the cargo port. I'll have to look at it again. I cannot say that for
That's what I got.
Mr. Chairman, are we to understand that? I just want to understand that we are now going down the road, or we're opening the door for people to basically go around at nights when civil servants are at home in their bed and place stuff on their desk. Political campaign type material on their desk. Are we now opening that door?
Mr. Chairman, one question. The Leader of the Opposition read from a document. Can we have a copy of that document?
Fair request, sir.
No, but you
Yeah,
read
but
from
I think
two.
not, I remember will not likely have a copy of that.
No, I don't have a copy. I know that every election for many, many years, you get notice from the same type of notice, but I haven't seen this one.
So this is the booklet that was distributed.
That looks familiar, yes, sir.
It was put on my desk too, by I don't know who, but we'll find that out on these cameras too. Message from the Premier. On the one hand, we can choose to move forward with building our new cruise berthing and enhanced cargo port facility. If we do so, we guarantee the cruise ship will continue to bring their visitors to Grand Cayman, and in doing so, we safeguard existing jobs and create more employment and business opportunities. So what does that infer? Why does the Cayman Islands need a cruise berthing facility and enhanced cargo port? I know it's not saying don't vote against it. What does it infer?
Mr. Chairman, again, I would want to look at this very carefully. What I understand is that this was the package that was given out. There was a note that said, "We hope you will find this booklet to be informative and helpful in answering any questions you may have." So from looking at this, and it's titled Be Informed, I understand this to be information about the project. And like I said, I advised civil servants that they had a right to be informed. I'm not at this position now to give opinions on what this document says.
Be informed but not influence. Am I correct?
Mr. Chairman, could you repeat that again? I didn't understand.
Be informed of the facts, but not influenced to vote yes or no.
Mr. Chairman, that's very subjective. I don't know what will influence one person or may influence another person. This is sort of how individual civil servants feel.
Okay. In your view, Mr. Deputy Governor, what do you think this booklet was put out?
Mr. Chairman, again, I don't go down that road of trying to think what people did. I can tell you exactly what it says here. We hope you will find this booklet to be informative and helpful in answering any questions you may have. And it says, be informed.
What's that from?
It's a little leaflet that was accompanied the packet.
Out of public money? Again?
Yes. I don't know, Mr. Chairman.
You don't know? Well, maybe we need to ask the Deputy Governor that where this money come from. Was it from the coalition government or was it out of the public funds?
Mr. Chairman, am
Mr.
I
Chair.
understanding correctly? And please, because I haven't had this answered yet, I hear people talking about it. Government has a policy to build an airport, to build a school, build something. This case is the dock. And so, government can't spend money to tell the people what they're doing, but people won't find out what they're doing?
Mr. Chairman, I have never once not supported the government promoting what they're doing.
Right.
I have a problem with using the government funds to influence the outcome of a referendum.
Did they tell them how to vote?
So what this is about?
But whose project is it?
Members, we're so far off topic as well in terms of the vote at hand. OE 13.
Yes. Yes.
Well, you can weigh, anybody can weigh in, that's everybody's right. But certainly it is not right for the government to be distributing all this information, all of this, inferring that the dock is a good thing, which would influence the vote to be yes.
Mr. Chairman, I asked
when
a question,
used
and
out of the public funds.
I'd like to answer that. I certainly believe that it's the right thing for government to do, to inform our people that this is what it's doing, this will be the outcome, and why shouldn't government do it?
Mr. Chairman, if
I don't understand, I really don't understand, Mr. Chairman, why anyone has any problem with government putting forward their position and explaining what's all about. And who can pay for it?
Mr. Chairman, my argument is not government putting it forward. My argument is when it is being put forward and the fact that a referendum is imminent, well, no, not again, for right now anyhow, but by the use of government funds to influence the vote.
So government must plan a program
Mr. Chair,
and put out.
Is there a question? Because
Listen,
I'm
you
sorry.
just come here and I'm talking. You should just keep out of it.
Well, I'm going to do the same thing he's doing, Mr. Chair.
Members,
If he's
hold on.
allowed to do that, I'm going to do the same thing.
The bunch of
Hang
you
on.
talk for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah,
For the last 2 weeks, and when you had a chance to get up and debate, you walked into that door. And when I looked at you as the speaker,
Mr. Chairman,
you
what's
said
that-
that
what's that
what that has
relevant?
to
What's
do with it?
Members,
It has
please.
everything to do
I
with
need
it.
order.
You all kept us here all these 2 weeks, and now I am asking a question. I'm not asking you because you don't know. I'm talking to the chairman. So, Mr. Chairman, government has a program, a building program. Government is explaining it, and a referendum is called so what government can sit down and do then? Say nothing and don't ask the people to support it?
use the part of money.
What party?
Use the double.
No,
the partisan
we must
money,
use
that's
the
all.
government funds because it's a government program, and I don't care who thinks. That's my view, you know, mine.
Well, I got mine too, so
Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah, that's good. But my view is, Mr. Chairman, that it is a government project. I can't find out what it is people are the opposition now is talking about in this instance. I do not understand why government has a program and government is explaining it, and whether it's on radio, whether it's on television, or whether it's on document, it is government's right. It's government should explain it, and the people must pay for it. If I want to blame anybody, blame them to call for the referendum.
I'm going to give way to the Premier and ask him. He has indicated me he would like to address this matter. Premier?
Mr. Chairman, I really hate to weigh in and lengthen what is already an overly long discussion, but I cannot allow the comments and the opinion of the Leader of the Opposition to be the only view that is expressed here. The member knows full well, the Leader of the Opposition knows full well, that this government and the one which preceded it campaigned on the basis and had as part of its platform on which it was elected, and therefore a mandate to construct a cruise port and an enhanced cargo port. It was an articulated position and policy of the government for more than 6 years. The way that we've gone about this project, following every single rule that people could dream up to make sure that that the process that we used was prudent and careful, meant that the government could not put out a great deal of information until fairly recently, because the project, the nature of the project, the structure of the project was a design, build, finance, and maintain project. That member, the Leader of the Opposition, and others, including the member from Georgetown Central, has roundly criticized the government for not coming, not providing to the country all of the necessary information. Now that the government is in possession of the information and proceeds to collate it in a booklet and to distribute that booklet, now the government shouldn't be doing that. Mr. Chairman, The objective of the opposition, the CPR, the National Trust, and the supporters is to stop the project. That has been the position, even though some of them have hidden it until fairly recently, in particular the CPR group. But this is a government project. It deserves the expenditure the government is using to give the people the facts, because the government has faced a massive campaign of mis- and disinformation up to this point. I said last week that the referendum being held on the 19th December was at risk. We now know that's no longer a risk. It's not going to happen. Quite when it happens, none of us know. But what the government is not going to do is to put down arms and to say, it is over. We are going to continue our campaign to get information into the public domain so that the public is in a position where it can make a decision when the referendum is held, whenever that is. And the leader of the opposition can complain until the cows come home, or he can go join some legal action, which seems to be what everybody wants to do now. But the government is going to do what the government believes is right on the basis of the best legal advice we can avail ourselves of. That is the government's position. Mr. Chairman, they can all say whatever else they want to say now.
Mr. Chairman, I hear the Premier. I respect that the Premier has a job to do, but the Premier must respect that I have a job to do too. Obviously, all of his protestations then about all of us, well, you can record anything. Well, you will write it. Yeah, I hear about it, write everybody else, get all the legal opinion. The only thing you got to take from me is the opportunity to be free, because I go northward for you, whatever you want. But I got to continue to speak, and speak my mind, and speak my position, and speak it clearly, and speak it loud. Despite all the protestations about how good the government has conducted this in a prudent and transparent manner, and a manner that is good for the country, it's obvious something wrong with it. The arbiters have said that it needs to stop until they get a chance to look at it. I know the bar to get the stay is lower than a ruling, than a court hearing, that they have the proof. But something wrong with it, that by them having to stop it at this stage. And I'm not trying to take away from the Premier. Lord knows, he knows that I can be the other side of this argument and hold no malice. I wish not to send that impression. But the fact is that they have used the public funds in a campaign to win a campaign. And that is not fair to all and sundry. It is not.
Mr. Chairman, just following on my question to the Deputy Governor.
Please continue.
Remember,
No,
he had it first. I mean, before this all broke down. I mean, he was questioned.
Just as a matter of natural justice, will the opposition and the CPR group be allowed to place information on civil service desk, putting out the side of the argument so they can also be informed? Or is it just facts?
Mr. Chairman, any request will be given due consideration, sir.
Well, but hold on, but no request. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, no one made a request to the Deputy Governor in that regard. So the bottom line is we can just basically find our agents up inside here and tell them to just run loose in government building, and that's fine.
Member of Georgetown Central.
Mr. Chair.
Come on, I'm going to put this to a bed very quickly here now. We're way past what's
Thank
reasonable.
you, Mr. Chair. I just want to correct the Honorable Premier in his notion that I'm suggesting that the people shouldn't be able to get information. Actually, I was of the opposite view. I am not in offense to the civil servants getting one position of the argument. What my concern is that all sides of the argument should be able to be presented. And unless the civil service is taking a position that the government's information is considered to be factual, they have to make that determination based on the memo's content. Now, I think the government should have the opportunity to promote, but if they are given the opportunity to promote, so shall the other parties involved. And because to be honest with you, Mr. Chair, and this is a question directly to the Deputy Governor, is that the memo also highlights that certain civil servants, or all civil servants, shouldn't be liking posts or promoting for or against. And it goes against the basic principles of free democracy. Now I've actually looked up in other jurisdictions what local government employees' political restrictions are, particularly in the UK, our mother country. And it talks about sensitive posts. I think that we have to re-examine the freedom of civil servants to like or dislike a matter. Now, unless the person is directly involved in it with the policy position, I think a civil servant should have the right and freedom on their own time to say, I don't want the doc or I want the doc, whichever way. I think we're shutting down civil servants too much. So my question, thank you for the leeway for all of that, is this policy to stifle, that's my categorization, maybe you may change, have a different categorization, GG, but I feel that civil servants are being stifled from their own viewpoints when they have nothing to do with the port. A person who is working in a garbage truck, or a person who is working in the environment, or a person who is working in the mail room has nothing to do with the port or the referendum directly. And they should have their freedom to stand for what they believe in, because if they're closed, you're taking away their freedoms. So is the DG of the view that this is maybe going too far in respect to closing civil servants' freedoms off from expression?
Mr. Chairman, no. I have basically quoted what our Public Service Code of Conduct says and given some examples. Mr. Chairman, the member has raised a valid point. We've been doing some additional research on this. The member has a valid point in terms of should this apply to all levels of the civil service? But Mr. Chairman, we in the Cayman Islands is in a very unique position. When you're looking at a policy that the UK has and their civil service is 100,000 or 1,000 people, that is one thing. In the Cayman Islands, we are very unique in our size. So, Mr. Chairman, I think it's time for us to look at this carefully. But for right now, what we're doing is following the rules that we have in place. But I'm happy to let the member know that we're looking at this going forward. But for right now, we think that we've got it right.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, just to my follow-up. I appreciate the peculiar situation that the DG is in and his staff, because he's right, we're in a very peculiar situation as to the size. And I know where he's coming from. Everybody affects somebody somehow. But that peculiar situation cannot negatively affect or disenfranchise the freedom of expression. I dare say that the freedom of expression is greater than the unfortunate hurdle you have of size. And that's unfortunately one of the things we're going to have to deal with, because I think there could be a constitutional challenge by stopping persons from having their opportunity to have their say. So I welcome the review of the policy of the civil service, and I hope that maybe in closing, the DG can give an example of when he intends to bring that review and whether or not the public can have consultation, or the members at least, because I know civil servants who've expressed themselves to me to say, I want to be able to have my say, and I feel encaged from being able to have my say about these matters, and that's when you get down a scary road.
Mr. Chairman, I hear what the member of Georgetown Central says, but I think that is a bit naive. I have a little farm in East End, and I have 5 men that work for me. Now, if I hear that one of my men is telling the people at some supermarket that the produce that we sell is not good, and we shouldn't buy it, they shouldn't buy it from us, they should buy it from Harvey or somebody else. You think that's his view and his opinion? You think I should keep him as a member of my staff? I give that a little basic example. You cannot, in a place as small as Cayman especially, you cannot work for the government and be actively campaigning against government projects or programs which you are being paid to help the government execute. It's as simple as that.
Mr. Chair, I think it would be only fair to allow me to respond, because actually my question was to the DG, but I see that the Premier has intervened. And I agree that there are...
Chair, I have the same right to debate any issue in this Finance Committee as any other member, with your permission, sir.
You are 100% correct, Honorable Premier. But I would say that there are many hundreds, if not thousands, of civil servants who are not directly involved with this particular policy of the government. Well, if that is the case, what you are saying is that every civil servant, any one of them who have a different view, according to the Premier, shouldn't be a part of the civil service if they're not of the same view of the government. And I think that's a very dangerous position to take.
Mr. Chairman, with respect, I did not say that. Everybody's entitled to their view and everybody's entitled to vote. What you're not entitled to do if you are working for the government is to go out and actively campaign against a government program, policy, or project.
But Mr. Chair, nobody's suggesting that civil servants should go out and actively campaign. There's a difference between publicly campaigning and going out and saying, I don't like these things, or am I in my own social network that I can't like a post or dislike a post. I think we're going too far with stopping people from their expressions. Public expression is a very serious democratic and constitutional right. And I think we're treading a very thin line with this now, regardless of how small we are.
And member, I think that the Deputy Governor had indicated to you that it was an issue that they I don't wish to put words in mouth, but you said it's something that the civil service leadership would be looking into. So I think that's as much as we can say about this with this at this month. So all in favor of CIV 13. Oh, I did promise the member from North Side. Go ahead, sir.
Through you.
Then we go into the vote.
Through you, just to bring the matter back, I think this is a great example of why we need electoral reform. But just to bring the matter back to the subject, I would like to ask the Premier if the government is given any consideration to a review of the election law next year, during the calendar year 2020.
Mr. Chairman, it is always good practice to have a look at the elections law the year before the elections and take on board advice from concerns from the supervisor of elections in his office, plus any other views we have. So although we have not specifically turned our mind to it, I am certainly minded to do that.
All in favor of CIV 13, maintenance of the electoral register, $656,292 in 2020 and $1,761,672 in 2021, standing part of the schedule to the bill. Please say aye. Those against, no. Ayes have it. CIV 15, policy advice and administrative support provided to the Deputy Governor, $1,372,823 in 2020 and $1,463,363 in 2021. Questions? All in favor of CIV 15, policy advice and administrative support provided to the Deputy Governor, $1,372,823 in 2020, and $1,463,363 in 2021. Standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it. OV 16, CIV 16, Educational Evaluation Service, $914,027 in 2020 and $928,351 in 2021. Are there any questions?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, sir.
Is this the Education Inspectorate? That's what I thought. No problem.
Mr. Chairman, yes, sir.
All in favor of CIV 16, Educational Evaluation Services, $914,027 in 2020 and $928,351 in 2021. Standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it. CIN 1, Health Insurance for Civil Service Pensioners, CIN 2, Health Insurance for Civil Service Pensioners, $28,742,309 in 2020 and $30,792,995 in 2021. Questions? Member for Northside.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chairman, to the Deputy Governor. The last Finance Committee, and the one before that, and the one before that, for the budgets, I raised the matter of switching from the age banding. I think your payments to Seneco now is grouped by age banding, and the older you are, the more you pay. And there was a commitment, I think at least the last Finance Committee, to have a look at the civil service demographic actuarially and come up with a premium where the healthy people would be the younger people, because in information given by your chief officer a little while ago, I think she said we have 541 below the age of 29. Most of them are likely to be very healthy, and 60 people over the age of 65. Most of them are getting up to the age where lifestyle diseases catch up with them. And what I'm looking for is for it to be real health insurance, so there's a balance and act. The younger people pay a little bit more, so that the older people pay a little bit less. And there's one premium across the board.
Mr. Chairman, I'll ask the Chief Officer to respond, and thank the member for the question.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. I thank the member, and I do recall this point being raised in past finance committees. I believe it would have been raised at that time as well that the portfolio is not active in the discussions with Seneco as it relates to premiums. The majority of our engagement is on our summary plan document, the benefits of the plan, but we are often informed of the premiums, which is done between Seneco's board and the Ministry of Finance, to the best of my knowledge.
Premium, because it's set by, because the last time I did an analysis of the various groups that pay Seneco, as I recall, the civil service, with all the healthy people, on a per person basis, was paying more than what community services is paying for the indigent sick people. And there has to be something wrong with that. So is this figure calculated on the basis of what the belief is of what the civil service will consume in healthcare costs, and it's more of a payment mechanism through Seneco that passes from the civil service to Seneco, or is it based on an actuarial review? Because I believe it was based on an actuarial review that it should come down. And you should stop subsidizing the private sector.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, it is our understanding that this is, Cineco's premiums are based upon actuarial advice. That has been our understanding. What I can say about the premium base, while we have seen increases in our premiums, one advantage to this approach for our seniors is that for family members, we have quite a few people who are in our retiree group who still have young dependents. And so at least if there's any silver lining to the approach that they're taking, we don't have the same high family rate that was applied to seniors previously, applying across all of the members that make that up. But we are concerned generally about how the premium increases that we have seen for our seniors, but we are somewhat constrained as we are not at the negotiating table, but we do understand that this is done based upon the actuarial science that's applied to Cineco's book of business. That's our understanding.
But correct me if I'm wrong, but as my understanding is that the actuarial evaluation is not done on the basis of spreading the risk across the total demographics of working civil servants and their families. It is done by age bands. I remember, I think it's 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 40 to 50, 50 to 60. And I think what that does is it forces those particular above 50, right, to get a higher premium. And that, in my respectful view, is that flies in the face of the whole concept of health insurance and spreading the risk. And I think it would be a useful exercise. And I don't understand that you negotiate benefits, but you don't negotiate price. Because again, that seems a serious contradiction in the way health insurance is managed, and how the actuaries work in terms of how your benefits are calculated.
Member, I was going to suggest that those types of questions regard to the setting of premiums, because it is done by actuarial review, as the chief officer mentioned, but dealt with through Cineco. They're the ones that organize it. So the premium setting, I would suggest, could we hold those when we discuss this with Cineco, and that we could have it at that technical level? Okay. Okay. Had several hands up.
Mr. Chair, if you
Go
don't
ahead.
mind, I have a question, but I don't, and my colleague has a few questions other than myself. I just want to find out where we can ask the necessary questions in respect to pension payments. I'm not sure if that would then fall under you and the pension, public pension board for former civil servants.
Public Servants Pension Board does not fall under my remit, sir.
That's you. So do you mind take that line of questioning? Yes? Okay. Through you, Mr. Chair. DJ, can you say what is the policy on a civil servant that passes away but has children below the age of 18 but no living partner? How does that work? I mean, as in they get their pension payments and the like.
Mr. Chairman, I thank the member for the question. I will ask the MD of the pension board to answer the question. She's here with us.
Jewel Evans Lindsay, Chief Executive Officer for the Public Service Pensions Board. There was a change in the law, DG. Yes.
Ms. Lindsay, good day.
Good day.
Are those prescription glasses, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just double check. I like to look at people in the eyes, you see?
No offense.
Okay.
Okay. Through the chair, Mr. Bryan, through the chair, the question I think you asked was when there are minor dependent children, surviving children to a member who was deceased, but there is no spouse. Is that correct? And it depends on the plan that the member participated in. Depends whether the member was in a defined benefit plan or in a defined contribution plan. It also depends on whether the member deceased prior to retirement or after retirement. So it would vary.
Okay, fair enough. Since you're here, there's other question in respect to the pension.
And we would be happy to have you at the pensions board and explain all of this to you in great detail.
I would love to. I've been trying to come and do that for quite some time now.
Absolutely.
I've been getting very far, but I appreciate the public invite. So
Yes,
we can do that maybe after the Christmas. In respect to, through you, Mr. Chair, in respect to past civil servants with their pension challenges and like, you know that I've contacted the department for a long time. How long do these cases normally take? Because I've heard now cases taking over 2 years to resolve. Is that a normal thing?
Absolutely not. Through the chair again, absolutely not the norm. We have 10,000 members, and I'm sure you've probably only heard from a handful. So when you put that in proper perspective, you could absolutely acknowledge that that is not the norm. And I know the case that you're talking about, and I don't particularly want to speak to it here today, but that is not the norm.
Thank you for acknowledging that. Through you, Mr. Chair, well, considering the fact you recognize it's not the norm, can you give some indication when it will be resolved? Because we're talking about over 2 years. And what we have to recognize is those pension contributions are people's livelihood for them to survive. So it's incumbent upon yourself and your team to resolve these matters as soon as possible, obviously within the efforts of making sure that you get everything right. But how long does that normally take?
Okay.
I've had more than one case that's passing within years now.
Okay, again, through the chair, the particular case that I think that you're referring to, I can't be sure since you said you've had several of them, has been before me before, and it was denied. And my team met with the member and undertook to assist him further by gathering other information and presenting the case to me again. So gathering of evidence and validation of evidence and information that the member presented to us does take time. And it, quite frankly, isn't the only case that we have. So yes, we do have the backlog.
Thank you, ma'am. I respectfully accept what you're saying, but I've been elected now 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
That particular matter came to me as soon as I got elected and was already with your office. So we're going on to almost 3 years now.
Was that the first submission or the second submission through the chair?
I think it doesn't matter whether it's first or second or third.
Well, it would.
But it's over close to 3 years now. But all being said, I guess I can see where that is at. Can you allow maybe your team to invite me to come down? Because I think it is an injustice to any former civil servant to wait 3 years to get a resolution on their pensions. I can't put it any other way than that. These are civil servants who protected and offered services to this country to wait almost 3 years to find a resolution to pension matters, particularly with the high cost of living in Cayman. No one of these civil servants in here would want that to be done. And I think it is an injustice. And I implore you, please get to the bottom of it.
So again, through the chair.
Go ahead.
Again, through the chair, we will get to the matter as soon as we practically can, Mr. Bryan.
Member for Bodden Town West.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want to thank the manager for the Public Service Pension Board in terms of the fine job that she's doing. I can tell you, I haven't dealt with this pension issue in both the public and the private sector. I wish to God the private sector pension was run the way the government public pension was run. Do not kid yourself. One of the things, Mr. Chairman, actually not through you, but rather more to you, and this is one of the questions I remember years back where the government audited financial statements couldn't be signed off because of the past service pension liability. At that time, I think it was around 1.7 billion or something over 20 years that was due. And I'm looking at this amount now of roughly $28.7 million. And I'm wondering, in terms of this amount right here that is being booked, is this the cost that the government is carrying as per what would have been required from an actuarial standpoint, or is this the actual cost that the government think they're going to incur for the former civil servants in the next 2 financial years? I'm sorry, this question will be more for the finance team.
I think you're mixing this up because this is, as this says, CIN2 is health insurance premiums.
Yeah, sorry,
I think you're on to something
not the pension,
completely
sorry.
different.
Yeah, sorry.
So let's stick to the thing at
I
hand.
apologize, sorry.
Again, Mr.
No, sorry. It was for the health insurance, sorry, in terms of one of the things we were talking about. I did say pension by mistake because the pension shortfall was around 200 and something million back then, and it was the past health care liability. So sorry if it came out the wrong way, but it did relate to health.
All those in favor of
Sorry.
Oh, go.
No. The question I was asking was going back to the year in which the Auditor General had raised where when they had qualified the government financial statements was because of the government's inability at the time, I remember serving right, in terms of booking the health care liability for former civil servants. And I'm looking at this amount, which seems to be quite large and more in line with what would have been an actuarial amount. So I was actually looking for confirmation if this was rather an actuarial booking or if the actual cost that you think you're going to incur over the next 2 years. I apologize if it came out the wrong way.
You're speaking of CIN2? Yeah. So my understanding is that these are the actuarially determined premiums for estimated actuarial premiums for 2020 and 2021.
Yeah. So the question is then.
Pensioners.
Yeah, so I mean, these are the health insurance premiums that are expected to be paid over the next 2 years.
Okay, so this is what we're paying directly into Cineco with 28 million for pensioners.
That's correct.
Okay. Well, ultimately, one of the things that I just want to say, this is really spaghetti around the plate because the only true cost is when third parties get involved because this once consolidated, some things will get eliminated anyway from a government EPS standpoint. And the only true cost is going to end up being what we end up paying to third parties. So that's fine. Thanks.
All in favor of CIN2 health insurance for civil service pensioners, $28,742,309 in 2020 and $30,792,995 in 2021. Standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it. OE19 ex-gratia recipients plan payments, $1,290,199 in 2020 and $1,354,709 in 2021. Are there questions? Member for the North Side.
Just to confirm that these are people who work for the civil service who didn't qualify for a pension under the old legislation, and we decided to give them an ex-gratia payment. Is that what it is? And the question is, does this include the $100 increase in January and $100 the following month?
Deputy Governor, we're on OE 19. Ex-gratia recipients plan payments.
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'll ask the Chief Officer to respond. She has the information.
Gloria McPhail Nixon, Chief Officer, Portfolio of the Civil Service. If I understood the question, sir, this was regarding OE 19? Okay. So for OE 19, Mr. Chairman, the ex-gratia recipients plan payments. An ex-gratia pension is payable to a former civil servant who had at least 4 years of service where they did not receive pension or a payment in lieu of pension, what we refer to as contracted officer's supplement at the time. So if they had at least 4 years of service where they were not receiving a pension or a payment in lieu of pension, they are eligible to receive an ex-gratia benefit.
How does one apply for that ex-gratia payment? Affidavit, or are you expecting that the records will be already within the civil service?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank the member for that question because it's an excellent example of the work that the pension board has to do. At the time that these individuals would have been employed, they would not have had a pension benefit, any pension rights. And so what we're finding out is that after their employment, sometimes many decades after their employment, the right has been created by way of legislation that's been passed. And so it is sometimes difficult to locate the records that would substantiate those individuals' employment. Sometimes they're what we refer to as previously as group employees, which means that our Public Service Commission and the then personnel department would not have been involved in their hiring. They would have been hired directly by the departments. Some of those hiring departments would have included places like Public Works, District Administration, and other such departments that were very much arm's length from core government. So those records were not even held centrally in many instances. The office, Public Service Pensions Board, does allow affidavits, but it is a starting point. It is to help us put together information to pinpoint when the individual would have worked there and the details around their employment so that we can verify it. We try not to rely on affidavits solely because, as you can imagine, decades later, individuals' memory, even with the best of intention, can be quite faulty. And as recently as the last couple of months, we had a particular case where we had affidavits in support of an application, multiple affidavits that remembered to the exact month and year an individual's hire date and when they ceased working. When we actually located the records, which did take us quite some time, the better part of a year, we found out that those recollections were off by some 16 years. So this is what we're talking about when we're saying this is the people's money. We need to make sure that we are not being party to fraudulent activities, however well-intentioned, and we do regret that it takes time. But unfortunately, people's recollection about things that happened decades ago, and we've had very upstanding members of the public who remembers working with that individual, but to say they can remember exactly when that individual joined and left, that is notoriously difficult to do. But we have individuals, and this is a cross-organization responsibility. We have people in our Public Service Pensions Board that are looking at the records that they hold, people in our central portfolio of the civil service, and individuals in our Ministry of Finance. Oftentimes they're looking through handwritten ledgers that are stored in non-air-conditioned containers, trying to piece together the employment history of an individual so that we can be sure to provide the information necessary to, one, process the payment, but also not to put future payments in jeopardy because of subsequent audits. It is a very difficult job, but we understand that these are people who used to work for this organization and who gave significantly of their time, and so across the organization, people undertake just that task. But it does take work because it is a benefit that they enjoy today, which they did not have at the time of their employment, and so our records are not always intact to support it, and we have to do research.
But you said this does not apply to individuals who got the COA, the contractors overseas allowance, which was common, and some people got up to 25% on a 2-year contract. Those people cannot qualify for this because they wouldn't have a pension either.
Mr. Chairman, through you, at present, that is correct. We would not count the time when an individual earned a contracted officer supplement as being pensionable service, because we deem that to be a payment that was made in lieu of pension at the time. And I would say, sir, that there were many individuals who came and were on what we would call local contracts. A lot of them were spouses of individuals who may have received COS, but they themselves did not receive COS. And some were Caymanians as well, who at the time were not what we would have called permanent and pensionable employees. And so this ex-gratia benefit ensures that we can do right by those individuals who would not have received a pension or a payment in lieu of a pension. But we do know that there are cases of individuals within our community who have contributed significantly in their respective roles within the civil service who would have had a COS payment at the time, but now who have negligible, very negligible pensions, sometimes less than $100, but these would have been respected members of our teaching profession, respected members, even some of them in our medical profession. And so we do know of these cases. They continue to live amongst us. Their children are here, and we do know that these are very difficult things. Some of these individuals would have taught members in this very chamber today. So we do know of those cases, and we have been asked to look at it. But this particular appropriation that is before us now and the rules that are enshrined in our ex-gratia pension regulations do not currently apply to those individuals.
And if the person was getting other benefits from government, poor relief, or what could they still qualify for this?
Mr. Chairman, through you, the pension payment does not take into consideration other payments that you would earn. What I can say is that provisions have been made to try to reduce the number of places an individual would have to go to seek this support, and members would have previously approved OE 116, which is the pension uplift, and that pension uplift ensures that anyone who worked for us for at least 10 years and did not receive, and their pension is less than what it would be under poor relief, that pension uplift will match the amount so that through their pension they're not at a disadvantage.
Member for Georgetown Central.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to clarify some understandings, if the chief officer can help me. So the ex-gratia payments are ex-gratia. Oh my God, tongue tie. The payments are mainly only for persons who weren't obligated to getting pensions from before, and it's an initiative that was created to help facilitate those who are underfunded through pensions. Would I be correct in that? Or were not included in the pension plans back in their day? Would that be fair?
Mr. Chairman, the member is correct. This was an additional vehicle that allowed persons who were not in a pension program before and who met the 4 years of service to be able to be included in a form of pension, which is the ex-gratia pension plan. The uplift applies to any pensioner, including those in the ex-gratia pension plan, who are making below what is the amount payable for poor relief.
Thank you, Chief Officer. I didn't do that for a trick question. The only reason I say that is because I believe there's a level of ownership of data collection and records. And these persons, if the government didn't step in to try to fill that void, wouldn't normally be getting any because they weren't part of a pension plan back then. So without saying, I'm not even going to bother to say that. Here's my question. Are we making sure that the collection of information is protected so that we don't have these types of problems in the future? Because that's all I'm worried about. I'm so mindful that there is some Caymanian who has given their time to the civil service. We've had problems with hurricanes. We've had problems with fires in our administration. We never used to collect data very well. And then there's questions about affidavits where people's minds are off. And I agree, and I can see that being a problem. But what I'm talking about is if one person who gets missed out because you just can't prove it will now have to suffer and not have anything. And that's what I'm worried about. And I always go far-fetched for that one person than everybody else who may be trying to cheat the system, because there's cheaters too, don't get me wrong, I know that. And I feel it for the pension board to have to investigate that. But data collection has to be a priority moving forward. I just want to confirm that that is the case.
Mr. Chairman, through you, maintaining that data is a top priority. What I really feel is important to be understood is that the data wasn't collected at the time because they weren't entitled at the time. We did not have a crystal ball that would know that this was a benefit that would be created in the future. So the data that we are capturing today is to try to ensure that the benefits, the things that we know of today, we are able to maintain our ability to provide prompt response on that data so that people's persons are able upon retirement to get timely access to their pension. But we do understand, as you have just said, that just as we didn't know at the time that this benefit would be realized in the future, neither could the employee have known that at the time. They would not even have known that they needed to keep these records because they wouldn't have known this benefit was going to be created in the future. That is why we undertake the research to do it. You'd be hard-pressed to find, governments around the world that allow citizens to make an application and put the onus for proving that application on the government itself. But we understand that this was a unique set of circumstances, and just as they are your people, they're our people too. And we are very committed to making sure that they get access to these, their pension benefits. And that is why across our organization, we don't look at each other and say, that's not my job. Pension pitches in, personnel pitches in, finance pitches in to try to get those applications complete on behalf of the members who apply.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, this is my last observation/question. I guess I'm paying the pains for my past sins. I didn't suggest that you didn't care about them. And I know that we all do. We just have different ways of delivering that. But I want to challenge you in respect to about the lack of data that would have been available back then. Because we're not talking about their pension records, we're talking about their employment records. Regardless if they were getting pension or not, one would assume that government will still have records of them working for the organization. So unless you're saying because they weren't on a pension that you wouldn't have a record of them being employed, that didn't make any sense to me. So I'm not trying to be funny or rude or any way, but you still would have, we should be still having those records, regardless of what has happened in the past. That couldn't be the justification because they weren't pensionable. So that's just my thoughts.
Mr. Chairman, it's a very serious point that has been raised, and I don't want to leave anyone with the wrong impression. Individuals were hired almost through a casual situation. Sometimes their employment would have been very short-lived. Sometimes it persisted for years, and those are the people who would now be able to access an ex-gratia pension. But they were not being hired as normal employees through the personnel department. They were being hired directly from departments, and oftentimes, because they were not hired through personnel, they were not on our payroll systems. These individuals show up like regular creditors in our books of vendors, and so it is a very time-consuming job to look through every payment that government may have made 30 years ago for a particular department and find instances of when an individual's name appears. And even finding the name when it is a female applicant, it's about finding out what surname that female applicant was going by at that time. So I'm not trying to make any excuses, but I want to set out the conditions that apply and to make it clear that they were not being treated as employees at that time. It was a very casual process that they were allowed to come on board. And so even things like contracts are typically not available. We're looking for any trace we can find of this individual receiving a regular payment from government, and we piece that back together to create an employment history.
Okay. Member here, and then we're going to member from the, go ahead, Bawdentown West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I can go back to the time in government when I started out as a civil servant, updating records from big government books to input in Lotus 123, not Excel, Lotus 123. No, my age coming out. And I want to say this so the public can understand why we're here. No government expenditure can be undertaken unless there's a majority vote in this House. Every single cent of the public's money has to be approved here. For the last 2 weeks we have been here. We have voted millions of dollars to help thousands of people in a country where we do not have direct taxation. That is a phenomenon in terms of what we're doing. This is a tradition that we have started decades ago of taking care of our people. We have enough mechanisms in place for people to, if they fall through the cracks, for us to catch them. If they miss on the pension, we can catch them through NAU, we can catch them through poor relief. We have many different mechanisms. I don't want anyone in the public believe that any government or any legislature, whether it be this legislature or previous legislature, would be party to anything that will deny anyone from us as people, because the government is the people, of the people, taking care of our own people. And I really want to say, because I've had many instances, and I can tell you, I have the challenges also. And what members of the public need to understand is that the process that we are going through to approve these funding here over the last couple of weeks, once we're spending public money, there must be records to justify why it is being spent. I sit on the Public Accounts Committee and we look for records. No one in government can get up and just write a check or give you money without some justification and also showing where this money or that they're giving you was approved by this legislature. So it is important for the public to recognize that every single legislator in this House understands the responsibility of taking care of our own. And I really want to say this as a former civil servant, and knowing what has gone through where government is, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, I wish to God the private pensions in this country operated like the government, because I can tell you right now, there are a lot of people in government that still did not qualify to get a pension, that are receiving a pension. And I'm very happy to see that this vote is being done, because there are many public servants that 30 years ago when I started was on local contract, wasn't getting anything, and retired now with basically nothing. So I am happy to see that this is being done. And if anything, I want to thank the Deputy Governor, his team, and also the manager of the Public Service Pension Board for what it is that they're doing. We were poor in keeping records, but we're still trying to make right with what it is that we have. And this is something that my colleagues on this side and myself fully support. It needs to be done, and it will continue to have our support.
Chairman.
Member for West Bay West, and then I'm going to conclude with the member for North Side.
I want to place on record my appreciation for the fact that we are now reaching certain people who are getting basically very, very little. I have known teachers and others, but particularly some teachers who came here back in very early 70s, and they did get some sort of I guess what you call a COS. But when you think of what the salaries was then, it was basically nothing. And now we finally get to the point where, and what the pensions they got, like I think she might have, chief officer might have mentioned it. Very, very little. As I said, I know some get, I think, less than $100 or just about $100. And now they've come to the point where the government is moving to assist them, and I certainly want to put this on record, my appreciation, because I've discussed it several times with different people over the years, that is, in the position she's in now. And between her and the deputy governor and their staff, they're the decision makers, they have come to this point. It's a really, and I can tell you with some of the calls that we've been getting, people appreciate the fact that it's being done.
Member for Northside.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, before the switch in government from defined benefits to defined contributions, I think it was in 1997 or 98, the vesting period for the defined benefits was 10 years. There would have been people who would have worked the government up until 9 years before that, and they would not have qualified for a pension. I just want to make sure that this board will also catch them, because their records should be available and would be available. I know.
Mr. Chairman, through you, I am reliably informed that they would also be caught up in this program and the uplift.
Because the defined contribution system, you're vested from day one, it was only $1, right?
Mr. Chairman, I believe with the changes that have been made to the law, we now have immediate vesting in our pension plans, and it's no longer a discretionary thing.
It was not discretionary under the defined benefits. It was a 10-year, you had to work 10 years to get it vested. You paid it up until year 9, and 11 months, but you could not claim it because it was not vested. If you left it behind. And I should know.
All in favor of OE19 ex-gratia recipients plan payments, $1,290,199 in 2020 and $1,354,709 in 2021, standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it. OE117, Civil Service Hospitality Fund, $145,000 in 2020, $145,000 in 2021. Questions?
Just an explanation of what it is. Is it Christmas parties and birthday parties? And I agree with it. I just want to know what it's for.
Mr. Chairman, as trying to be a good employer and to reward our staff, we give civil servants $25 towards a Christmas lunch. $30. Sorry, we increased it. So it's done to promote togetherness. So a ministry will be looked at how many civil servants they have in their ministry or department. They'll get a check, and it's used then to have a Christmas lunch or a Christmas dinner, to keeping everyone working together and celebrating the Christmas season together. And it's gone down very well with the team.
Mr. Chairman, this amount should actually be twice as much, but next time.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to know, maybe time has moved on now. What would happen to when the ministries and different departments would have their parties? And
Questions? If not, all in favor?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'm trying to find out what happened to when the ministry would have a party out of the ministry funds. for their staff. And departments would have exchange gifts and whatnot out of department funds.
Yeah.
It's either we were at Pedro Castle or we were at some restaurant. You'd kill me, you'd be at my house all year nearly, but we had a party. Appreciation party. What happened to that? Now we're giving them $30. Anyway.
Mr. Chairman, the member is right. But this happened during austerity, where we cut everything back. We decided to move the fund centrally, but ministries now do put in some funds to make sure that their teams have a good time, and they're very innovative in what they're doing. Again, we're mindful that we're spending other people's money, so we want to make sure that we're doing it wisely. But I support the member and the leader of the opposition. We're looking at, in 2020, what we can do. Should we be having one civil service big party at Pedro Castle or something? So we want to look at ways, but this really is about giving our staff who work so hard for us, risk their lives, an opportunity to enjoy the Christmas season with their colleagues.
Mr. Chairman, earlier in my thanks, I did mention the Deputy Governor and the Chief Officer and their staff, but that thanks goes to the people who actually work in the pensions, Ms. Jewel and all of her staff, because they do a good job in keeping us getting our pension.
All in favor of OE 117, Civil Service Hospitality Fund, $145,000 in 2020 and $145,000 in 2021. Standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye. Those against, no. Ayes have it. OE 126, Anti-Gang and Child Safeguarding Support, $230,000 in 2020 and 2021. Questions? Member for Northside.
To you, Mr. Chairman, to the Deputy Governor. A couple of years ago, we brought in some gang experts from the UK, which led to certain changes in the in the penal code and other police-related matters. Has any of those changes to the penal code been used successfully to arrest or punish any of these gang members?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not aware of any prosecutions being brought under that legislation. I can undertake to do an inquiry and update the member, but from where I sit, I don't recall any convictions or any charges being brought against anyone under that legislation.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, does that indicate that the legislation was unnecessary, or because as I recall, your parents could be fined up to $100,000 if you were dressed like a gang member? And I thought at the time they were rather draconian, but the government decided that that's what they wanted to do. But if there hadn't been any prosecutions under it, then maybe we should look at repealing those kind of legislations, which is obviously not having any effect.
Mr. Chairman, I can pass that on to the Commissioner of Police, the Attorney General. I agree, if we have a piece of legislation that's not working, then we need to fix it.
Member for Georgetown Central.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the DG, can you give us an update as to how the anti-gang policy, and I think the Premier spoke about their initiatives and the like. Obviously, it's important to me for any young people involved in this type of thing. What are we doing? Is there anything new? What's working? What's not working? What direction we're going? Because we want to keep a handle on this. Because I think we're doing a reasonably good job at the moment, but we don't want this springing back up.
Right. Mr. Chairman, thank you. And the member is absolutely right. While there have been a lull in gang violence, we want to make sure that it doesn't move get to that level again. So, Mr. Chairman, that's the whole purpose of this strategy. So this strategy is being rolled out next year. So the money in the budget now is for, obviously, is for next year. Dr. Tasha Garcia from my office has been leading this initiative. It has been encompassing across the entire civil service, everyone that is involved in our young people, education, police, social services. Every agency has basically come together and put the strategy in place. Now, Mr. Chairman and members will ask, well, haven't we done this before? Why hasn't it not worked? Mr. Chairman, what's in this budget is resources. So when things have not done well in the past, and the member from Northside keeps saying it, is that they haven't been properly resourced. So in this budget, we have staff members, new staff, that are going to be specifically involved in managing this strategy. I have offered to chair the oversight committee so that we are having leadership from the top, but also to ensure that there is no silos, that everyone is working together. Obviously, I'm doing that to get the strategy up and running, and then there's a time when I will hand over. But I wanted to show, Mr. Chairman, that this was something that we across the civil service took seriously, and we've seen the horrors of gang violence. We want to make sure that we have a strategy in place that deters our young people from ever wanting to be in a gang, that targets the gangs, and make sure that there is gang violence is disrupted.
Mr. Chair, I was hoping, I don't know if Ms. Garcia could potentially give us any new insights to where we're at, or if that was it. That was it?
Mr. Chairman, if there were some other details the member wanted, I could ask Dr.
I was
Tasha.
given an opportunity, really, for you to present as much of the positive, because I don't want to focus only on the negatives, but where we're, the positive elements of it. So,
Dr. Tasha Ebanks Garcia, Deputy Chief Advisor to the Deputy Governor, Strategic Reforms Implementation Unit, Office of the Deputy Governor. Through the chair, as the Deputy Governor shared, we engaged in a great deal of consultation over the past 6 months with a range of stakeholders within the government that work in the area or contribute to the area of addressing gangs and gang violence in the Cayman Islands. As a result of that work, a strategy and plan for addressing the gangs and gang violence in the Cayman Islands has been developed. The plan includes a range of projects that have been identified, some of which are already in train, being taken forward by various departments or ministries that contribute to addressing the issue of gangs. Other projects will be coming online in the new financial year, where additional new funds have been identified. As the Deputy Governor shared, we have resources that will be assigned to the Strategic Reforms Implementation Unit come in the new year to support with in ensuring that across the government there is the support that's needed to deliver these projects. So what's envisioned is that the projects will be delivered by the various departments or ministries that are responsible for each of the projects, but they'll need support in doing that. So we've got dedicated resources to support them to ensure the success of these projects, but also in addition to the success, to help to ensure that we keep ourselves accountable to delivering on the commitments that we've made through the strategy and plan. As the Deputy Governor shared, there is a steering committee that he will chair, so reports will go up to that steering committee as we track and monitor the delivery, the implementation, and the outcomes and outputs of these projects.
All in favor of OE 126, anti-gang and child safeguarding support, $230,000 in 2020, $230,000 in 2021. Standing party to schedule to the bill, please say aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it. EI 35, portfolio of the civil service, $1,357,500 in 2020, $650,000 in 2021. Any questions? All in favor of EI 35, portfolio of the civil service, $1,357,500 in 2020, and $650,000 in 2021, standing part of the schedule to the bill. Please say aye. Those against, no. Ayes have it. I looked up nobody's signal, sir, and he said put the vote. All know this. Members, this concludes the deliberations of the appropriations to the Deputy Governor. Thank you for coming down to the committee. So you and your team are now excluded. Any final statement?
Sir, Mr. Chairman, thank you, and thanks to all of the questions. I thought we made some great progress here. I have a big to-do list, and I will make sure to update the members. Thanks to the Chief Officer and the amazing team that we have here for all the work that they do. I am most grateful. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Members of the committee, we're going to turn our attention now to go back to the Ministry of Education. So members, that's where we are going to turn our attention, not to try and get that finished off, but let's take a quick 10-minute break. It's 5:20. Let's be back at 5:30. Thank you.